When it comes to feedback, not all criticism is equal. We would all love to hear that what we do is fantastic. But in reality, we can't all be fantastic at everything all the time. We're going to be told we need to improve, and sometimes we're going to be told that we have to change completely. So after listening to our first 2 rounds of speeches, I wanted to learn how to provide all of you with better constructive criticism. I never have much to contribute when y'all are done for your critiques because I don't want to sound mean or hurt anyone's feelings, especially when you perform so well at something that I dread and fear. However, in my audience analysis, 5 out of 6 of you also said that sometimes you hold back because you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings and you don't want to sound mean. So over the next few minutes, I will outline how to provide criticism constructively and provide 5 steps on how to do so without that guilty, mean feeling. First, let's identify what makes constructive criticism helpful. According to the article, Constructive Criticism, Can You Handle the Heat? By Huffington Post Canada, criticism can be anything from a typo in a presentation to your boss recognizing your hard work. Both types affect us, either hurting us or making us feel better about ourselves. However, when it comes to dishing out criticism ourselves, we sometimes muddle the line between positive feedback and negative feedback. In her article, Communicate with Confidence and Give Constructive Criticism Without Crippling Others, Diana Bucher writes that oftentimes when we want to offer constructive criticism, we instead give destructive criticism. To avoid this trap, Bucher says that we must identify our own motives before we speak. She writes that constructive criticism stems from your commitment to and concern for another person and a sense of responsibility to do things correctly. According to Dr. Clifford Lazar's article, The Art of Constructive Criticism, the first method of constructive criticism is to request a specific change in the future instead of focusing on a present tense negative. The 1990 nursing article, Constructive Criticism, How to Give It and How to Take It, says that once we've determined that our motives are positive and will help the receiver achieve a desired result, we must then deliver our critique in a way that they will find acceptable. In Interact, Interpersonal Communication, Concept, Skills, and Context, Verderber and Verderber provide 5 steps for criticizing constructively. The first is to ask your receiver's permission to disclose negative feedback. Because personal feedback is a privacy disclosure issue, they write, you should always make sure that your partner wants to hear what you have to say. The second step is to preface a negative statement with a positive one. Of course, common sense tells us that if we say a superficial praise and then slam them with a really hard criticism, they're going to know what you're doing. But if you give a genuine compliment on something you actually liked about their speech, and then a genuine thing you want them to improve on, they'll be more accepting to that and they'll listen to you more. The third step is to describe the problem. Verderber and Verderber write that describing the behavior indicates that you're focused on a particular issue rather than attacking them as a person. The fourth step is to be as specific as possible. The more you can describe the actual behavior you want to change, the more effectively that the person will understand what you want them to improve on. And finally, the fifth step is, when appropriate, make suggestions. Tell them what you think they could do and what you would do in that situation, so that way they don't feel like you're just telling them all these horrible things you're doing and you're not actually trying to help. Okay. Any questions?
So when you say ask permission, is it like, so can I just offer you some criticism, or you, like, is that what you mean by that?
I wouldn't say, could I offer you some criticism? That sounds harsh.
Does it?
It's kind of random. A little bit. But, okay, so for example, in this classroom after all of our speeches, Ms. Daly wants everyone to say what we thought about our speech. So for here, we already know it's coming. You don't have to ask permission. But if you're somewhere else and maybe your friend is saying something and you think maybe they're not handling a situation correctly or it's a little too inappropriate, then you can pull them aside and be like, hey, can we talk about something?
Yeah, your job with the newspaper, like, was it hard for you to work on your criticism, or did you just automatically know how to do it?
Actually, that's the place I find easiest to accept it. It's a lot harder for me here because it's not something that I'm good at naturally, so I feel like I'm trying really hard, and sometimes not hard enough, whereas when I'm at the newspaper, that's what I love, that's what I'm good at. So the more feedback you give me, whether I disagree with it or not, then I always want more feedback so I can know what other people think, what I can do better.
Do you feel like whenever you're giving criticism to someone, do you feel like it should be weighted on your experience and your knowledge in the subject?
I feel like to a certain extent, that's a lot of times, if I ever say anything about y'all's speeches, I say it was good. I liked it, because this isn't my forte. It's not something that I feel like I can speak on to tell you to do better. The only thing I've commented, if you've gotten me to do a peer review so far, I comment on grammar and actually how you wrote your speech, because that is my area. I write for a living.
What's your level of like criticism like versus a person that you know personally or a stranger?
In the Interact book, the Verderber and Verderber, they said when it's someone you know, you can be a little more candid and a little more open. You don't have to take all the formalities versus if it's somebody that you're really not acquainted with that well. They said just because, like in that situation, if you don't ask permission first, then they may misunderstand that. If they don't know you, then they might just think that you're attacking them when you're really trying to help.
Out of the 5 steps that you have on the screen, like, which one is like the most one that you tend to struggle with whenever you're trying to provide criticism?
Whenever I give it or when I receive it?
Both.
Both. I feel like when I give it, I struggle with making suggestions because then I kind of feel like I'm being too nosy and in your business. Nobody likes that, so it's finding a good middle ground. And whenever I'm receiving it, sometimes it's describing the problem. Because if you feel really strongly that I need to improve on something and I have no idea what you're talking about, then the more questions I ask and you just keep looking at me like I don't know what you're talking about, I don't want people to know you're complete. Anybody else?
When you are functioning in your role as editor of the newspaper, are you more comfortable giving criticism then?
Because that is my area of expertise, and my whole role as editor, because we are all students, is to help guide the new people. And if I don't know something, then I need to help find it, or I need to look, no, I don't know, let's go look it up right now. So it's a lot easier when I'm actually at my job and I know what I'm doing. Anybody else? So, in conclusion, constructive criticism is best given when it addresses a specific change in the future versus a present tense negative. We can avoid reverting to destructive criticism by committing to our concern for another person and to our desire to help them. Finally, if we aim to be as specific as possible and offer suggestions that might lead to positive change, our critiques are more likely to fall on willing ears. Thank you.